think you know the people around you. Nietzsche spent his life obsessed with a single question that most people are too afraid to ask. What if everything someone shows you is the opposite of what they actually are? What if the one preaching about honesty is the one most tangled in lies? Their own. Truth 1. The mask is not a lie, it's a scar. The mask strains when it's challenged. Look for the jaw that tightens when a certain subject appears, the laugh that comes too fast, the topic that suddenly gets changed. Not the content of what they're saying, the intensity of it. The man who savages others for being emotional, he's drowning in feelings he has no language for. The woman who can't stop pointing out other people's selfishness. She's quietly terrified that she, too, takes more than she gives. That's a mirror pointed at a part of themselves they haven't forgiven. But here's what no one tells you. You've never actually seen them. What if the person who laughs the loudest is the one most hollowed out by silence? Nietzsche called this the human problem. Not evil, not deception, just the infinite, tragic distance between who a person is and who they've been forced to become. By the end of this, you won't just see other people differently, you'll see yourself. Every person you've ever met is wearing a face they built under pressure. Nietzsche said, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." He didn't mean that as an insult. He meant it as a warning. The person who always seems perfectly composed, they learned early that emotion was dangerous. The mask is stillness. Underneath, a storm they've spent decades learning to suppress. That's not rudeness. That's not distraction. Truth, too. What they hate is what they fear in the mirror. Nietzsche understood something modern psychology would spend decades confirming. We do not hate what is foreign to us. We hate what is familiar but forbidden. We project onto others the things we cannot look at in ourselves. It's not weakness. It's survival. You've watched them, listened to them, spent years with some of them. Not because they're good at hiding, but because you were never taught where to look. And in that distance, if you know how to look, everything is written. You'll see something far more unsettling, not in a scheming, calculating way, but in the way that a wound heals. It forms a surface, a protective layer, and eventually, people forget there was ever a wound at all. The confident executive who fills every silence with words? The mask is noise. Underneath, a child who was never allowed to be uncertain. Here's how you read it. Watch for tension, not performance. That's the edge of the mask. And just beneath it, the truth. Pay attention the next time someone erupts with criticism. Watch for the specific shape of someone's contempt, what they attack obsessively, relentlessly, with just a little too much energy. That's not a mirror pointed at the world. That's a mirror pointed at a part of themselves they haven't forgiven. And once you see that, you stop taking the criticism personally, because it was never really about you. Truth 3. Behind every behavior is a specific fear. People don't do what they want to do. They do what keeps them safe. Nietzsche rejected the idea that humans are rational creatures guided by logic and choice. He saw something far more raw. Nearly every action is a response to an ancient fear. Watch someone dominate a conversation. That's not arrogance. That's the fear of being forgotten. Watch someone agree with everything you say. That's not kindness. That's the fear of conflict, which is really the fear of abandonment dressed in politeness. Here's the key. Stop asking what someone wants. Ask what they're protecting. The person who over-explains every decision fears being misunderstood because once being misunderstood cost them something real. The person who never commits to plans fears that showing up will expose them. Find the fear, and the entire behavior becomes transparent. Truth 4. False confidence is guilt in disguise. There's a very specific kind of person you've encountered. Unshakable, certain, always composed. They move through the world like they've already decided every outcome, and something about them makes you feel slightly uneasy. But you can't name why. Here's what Nietzsche would tell you. Real certainty is quiet. Performed certainty is armor. When someone needs you to see their confidence, they're not confident at all. They're constructing a monument over something they don't want excavated. Sometimes it's a failure they haven't forgiven themselves for. Sometimes it's a version of themselves they're trying to permanently bury. Watch for the moments the armor cracks. When they're challenged unexpectedly. When control slips. When they face someone they can't impress. The reaction in that split second is not who they're trying to be. It's who they actually are. Truth 5. Attention-seeking is a cry from childhood. The person who is always the loudest in the room, always performing, always turning the camera back to themselves. Before you call it narcissism, ask Nietzsche's question. When did they learn that invisibility was dangerous? Because no child is born desperate to be seen. That desperation is taught. Maybe they had a parent who only noticed them when they performed. Maybe they grew up in a household where being quiet meant being overlooked. And being overlooked meant not mattering. The adult who needs constant validation isn't weak. They're replaying the only strategy that ever worked for them. They don't know how to simply exist without proof that they matter. And here's the painful truth. The louder the cry for attention, the deeper the silence they're trying to fill. Truth 6. Envy is an unexpressed confession. This one is harder to admit. When someone attacks what you've built, mocks your confidence, or quietly works to dismantle what you've created, it rarely comes from hatred. It comes from recognition. Nietzsche saw envy not as a moral failing, but as a philosophical statement. You cannot envy what you don't desire. You cannot rage against something that doesn't remind you of what you've abandoned in yourself. The person who tears down the confidence speaker wanted to stand on that stage themselves, and somewhere decided they couldn't. The one who gossips relentlessly about someone's success is having a private conversation with their own unrealized potential. Envy is the soul, uncensored, saying, I want that, and I don't believe I'm allowed. When you see it in others, you become immune to their attacks. When you see it in yourself, that's when you become free. Truth 7. They're not reacting to you. They're reenacting the past. You've had this experience. A conversation that escalates in a way that makes no sense. A reaction so disproportionate to what was said that you're left standing there, confused. What just happened? Nietzsche, and later the psychologists who followed him, understood something devastating. Adults don't argue with you. They argue with everyone who hurt them before you. You reminded them of a parent who dismissed them, a teacher who humiliated them, a partner who left without explanation. The emotional temperature in the room had nothing to do with the present moment. You just happened to match a frequency from a very old wound. This doesn't excuse behavior, but it explains it. An explanation is a form of power. Because once you stop taking someone's past personally, they lose the ability to pull you into it. Truth 8. Patterns are confessions. People don't tell you who they are. They show you over and over until you're willing to believe it. The person who disappears every time real intimacy is possible. The one who sabotages things just before they succeed. The one who keeps choosing people who will eventually leave. These aren't mistakes. They're not bad luck. They are the architecture of an inner belief about what they deserve, what's safe, what always happens in the end. Nietzsche believed the deepest truths about a person love, not in their words, not in their stated values, but in the geometry of their repetition. Watch what someone does when they're scared. Watch what they run from when something gets real. Watch the choice they make when they have the chance to be vulnerable and choose distance instead. The pattern is a confession, and it's speaking constantly to anyone who knows how to listen. Here's what you've been building toward in this entire time. The truth underneath. All the truths. Every mask we've examined, you've recognized. Not just in others. In yourself. The projection you spotted, you've done it. The false confidence. The attention you've sought in ways you're not proud of. The person you've attacked because they had what you quietly wanted. The pattern you keep repeating. Even now, even knowing better, Nietzsche wasn't trying to make you a better reader of people. He was trying to force you into the most uncomfortable mirror you'll ever stand in front of. Because the same light you use to see through others, it was always pointed at you. The only people who truly understand others are the ones who have ruthlessly, unflinchingly understood themselves. That's the work. Not a trick, not a tactic, a reckoning. And it starts the moment you stop looking outward. And finally, look in. Subscribe, comment which truth hit hardest.